Posted by Youthy Dude Ice always here. What's the creepiest thing you've ever experienced when you've been alone? I was walking home from a bar one night when I was at uni, and heard what sounded like a blood-curdling female scream. I was absolutely petrified, made a cursory glance to see if I could easily see what was going on, but when I couldn't see anyone I sprinted home. It was only months later that I saw a video online and realized what it was a fucking fox. Their screams are horrifying. Once my grandma was out of town to visit my uncle who lives in another state. I was watering her plants, feeding her dog, checking her mail, all that stuff. I went inside and her TV was turned on. Turned it off. Went into a different part of the house to water the plants she kept in a den-like area. Walked back through the living room and the TV was on again, this time the Golf Network. My pap loved napping to golf, like every other 60-something on the planet. Turned it off and went about my business. Came back a few days later to repeat this routine and some of her figurines had been turned around. He'd sometimes do this because it annoyed my grandma. Probably not creepy, but it makes me chuckle. Me and my mom saw someone or something watching us sleep. I was about 5 or 6 years old and my mom was putting me to sleep. I fell asleep and when I woke up in the middle of the night I saw a dark figure like a man standing in front of the window. I woke my mom up almost about to cry and I was hoping it was just a tree or something because we were on the second floor of the house. But when she woke up she also saw what happened and told me to stay put and don't move. She quickly ran to the living room because we had guests over and everyone was still up drinking. She told everyone what happened and for 3 hours everyone went out and searched around the house. What I didn't tell her was that when she left the window started to rattle as if someone was trying to open it. I was scared and never slept on my own in that room until I was 8. It was my parents' basement when I was visiting home during uni. I thought it was haunted. Stuff would vanish or seem to move on its own. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps upstairs when no one was home and investigate and indeed I was alone. Then I started literally missing time and finding myself in different places down in the basement. There were other things. Turned out, carbon monoxide leak and poisoning. I was lucky I wasn't there for extended periods and it was fall so window were open. When I was a kid, I used to spend a lot of time alone in my basement. We had a TV down there, so I was down there pretty late most nights in the summer. One pretty late night, I swear I heard rustling from behind me, but when I turned around, there was nothing there. I felt a really sharp breath on the back of my neck, hard enough to blow my hair. Took off up the steps, leaving everything on downstairs. I grabbed my mom and we went back downstairs to check it out. Everything was turned off. I didn't hang out downstairs anymore. This happened a few years ago. It was about 9 p.m. and I was returning from practice. I would say I'm a pretty paranoid guy and usually overthink stuff. As I was walking down the road I had this terrible gut feeling, like my heart dropped. I immediately felt like I should look behind me. I turned around and saw a man, pretty muscular, around his middle 30s, staring at me. I froze and suddenly the same gut feeling returned. I don't know why but I had that urge to scream. The guy actually took off running, probably because he thought I was calling for help. When I got home I told my parents, I was 14 at the time, and we called the police. A few days later a police officer knocks on our door and starts asking me questions. He had a picture of the guy from that night. I could tell it was him due to him being bald, and from his muscular body. It turns out they had already caught the guy and just wanted to confirm if it was him. I later find out this guy has been guilty for murder, molestation etc. He was also carrying a knife the night I saw him. Really messed up guy. I've told this before. My mom works night shifts, so I was home a lot often. I went downstairs to make some dinner and take it back to my room, but before leaving the kitchen I locked the back door. I go upstairs and then I heard this awful bang and scrape noise. I was so scared but I still went to check what it was. I opened the back door and I saw 3 bouquets of roses. I called my mom crying about it. She said a guy friend came by and wanted to give it to us, mom, sister, me, for Valentine's Day. I told her about how the door was suddenly unlocked and she said that he doesn't have a key. Ghostly stagecoach. I was driving with my dad and we're in the middle of the country. We were approaching an intersection about a 1/4 mile up the road. It was approaching dusk, still plenty of light to see, and we saw a large grayish translucent cloud. If I had to compare it to a shape, my dad and I agreed that it looked most like a stagecoach. Random I know, but still, appear out of thin air on the left side of the intersection and slowly cross the road in front of us and then disappear into thin air after crossing the road. It was so clear to us that my dad pretty much slammed on the brakes. We looked at each other and said, "Did you just see?" "Yup. Not sure if it's spooky, but it's something I've never experienced before, and haven't since." Sleep paralysis and I have become close acquaintances over the last few months. When I go through a large amount of stress, I typically suffer from sleep paralysis, and the shit I hear is pretty unsettling. So there I was, sleeping on my cousin's couch. I had woken up at around 3 in the morning or so due to dehydration, and to my surprise, I couldn't move a muscle. My face was buried in the couch cushion, but my ears were nice and open. I started hearing a thumbing-like sound as if someone was walking down the hallway that led directly where I was sleeping. The thumbing would increase in volume as time passes by, and would eventually stop as soon as it became loud enough to be near the couch. By the time it reached the couch, I jolted up and looked down the hallway to see nothing. After about 10 minutes of freaking out, I managed to fall back to sleep, only to wake up moments later, not being able to move. The same scene played out again, but this time I could see the hallway. Nothing but void darkness. Darker than the hallway usually is, and darker than I'd like it to be. Then, the footsteps started. I tried closing my eyes and moving my head to look away from the hallway, but only managed to squint. As my vision blurred, the footsteps became faster, and as I opened my eyes, they slowed. This continued until they reached the couch. Once that was achieved, I woke up again. I was dazed, tired, scared, shook, whatever you can use to describe this nightmare. Once I started to doze off again, I started hearing something new, crying. Not me crying, but some girl. My cousin has kids, but they aren't toddlers, and yet I heard childish crying. Then I heard the footsteps, and after that, I couldn't sleep at all. It was now 5 in the morning and I had thrown in the towel. This bout of sleep paralysis won, and I had no intention of going through a repeat. I got off the bus one night coming home from work. A guy also got off at my stop, but I didn't think much of it, and started walking the couple blocks I had to walk to get to my apartment. I heard footsteps behind me and realized that guy was still walking behind me. Okay, maybe he walks the same route, whatever. As I was getting closer to my building, I felt like the steps sounded faster, like half walk, half running toward me. I started to panic because at this time I didn't have a cell phone or any way to call for help. I noticed another man walking on the opposite side of the street, and he started crossing towards me as well. At that moment I got to my yard and jogged up to the door and threw it open, and as I did I heard the one behind me say, "Hey, wait." As I slammed the door shut and locked it, there was a window in the door and we locked eyes. He was standing in the middle of the yard just staring at me, way closer than I even thought he was. He turned and said something to the guy that had been on the other side of the road that I couldn't hear, and they walked off together. I was kind of stunned as to what just happened. I had a heavy, nauseous feeling in my stomach, like I just barely escaped something horrible. After that I always had my boyfriend meet me at the bus stop and walk me home. It was night and I had to take a crap. I ran to the bathroom, but I felt the whole room having a weird vibe, and it was cold AF being winter and the heater was on. So I went to the bathroom. I didn't close the door, because I had to take this massive shit. 3 minutes and I was on my phone minding my business until I get a vibe that someone was watching me. From my peripheral vision I swear to God I saw something run across the other room. I thought it was something else, but I looked to the door again and saw a shadow moving. I wiped, closed and locked the door and laid my ass to sleep in the tub with the lights on. I got more scared when I woke up from a loud banging noise, but it was my dad needing to pee. This is copy-pasta of my response to another similar thread. I've told this story before, but it's been a while, and may just get buried, but here goes. I was out in the country late at night taking some long exposure photographs of the Hale-Bopp comet as it approached the sun, which was marvelous by the way. I had driven out of town and just picked a dark, empty farmer's field to set up. Nice and dark. I'm out there for a couple hours when I get this massive feeling of I need to leave now. I pack up my camera, tripod and lawn chair, throw it all in my car, get in and start the car. When the lights of the car come on, I see the wolf that was sitting 20 feet from where I was positioned, just sitting there staring at me. I've never gotten bigger chills in my life. I do not have the photos of the comet. They turned out terrible. Wasn't entirely alone. Was watching TV with my sister, parents were out, when we heard what sounded like footsteps coming down the stairs, bi-level house, stairs located at the back of the sofa. We both turned around and saw a shadow figure, looked like a shadow man, walk down the stairs, out of front entrance and disappear. It was scary as fuck, especially because we both saw it. Recently we were having dinner as a family and we got to talking about spirits/ghosts, and my dad jokingly asked if we'd ever encountered any, My sister and I confirmed yes and in the house. My mom then asks, "Is it the shadow figure? I've seen it too, seems pretty harmless." My mom is a good Catholic girl. It definitely spooked us because we had never told them, and my mom confirmed seeing it too but was oddly calm about it. This is the one experience I've ever had that truly made my skin crawl. Anyway, long time ago during World of Warcraft original days. It was a weekend, I was pulling an all-nighter. I stepped out onto my balcony to have a smoke. The balcony was in a little alcove, so nobody could tell I was there. It was 4th floor, high enough that people on the ground didn't see. Anyway, it's like 3:30 a.m., I'm sitting in my deck chair zoning out when I hear the faint tinkle of the ice cream man. WTF? As I watch, the most rusted, beat-up, jacked ice cream truck I have ever seen slowly cruises down the residential blocks. My balcony had a great view of the surrounding neighborhood, and I watched for maybe 15 minutes as this guy methodically went up and down the streets, doodling his little melody. In the humid stillness of the summer night, it was creepy as fuck. At his closest point to me, I could see one huge, hairy Popeye-style forearm sticking out the window. The guy had to be a huge monster. For sure he was looking for someone to kill. I stayed very still, and when he was out of loss of my balcony I quietly went inside and shut all the curtains and made sure the doors were locked.